This year, I did something I've never done before. I tracked every single game of Commander that I played for the year 2025. I was inspired by the EDH Rec podcast to do this after they did an episode at the beginning of 2025 talking about their 2024 Commander games, and I thought this would be a great exercise to try for myself, and I would really recommend it for anyone that's a Commander player, anyone that's interested in tracking their games, and just wants to add a little bit of extra work. I mean, I didn't do a lot of work on this, I'm going to be completely honest. It's a little bit of work after each game. It takes like probably around a minute just to track the win, the loss, and add it to the Commander total. Now, not every deck made it all the way to December. I'll probably make another video just talking about the importance of taking decks apart, and part of the reason that I think it's really important to take decks apart is to track games and to see if you are playing them a lot, if they're not winning or losing enough, or if they're winning too much and it's stomping too much. It's important to evaluate your decks and to adjust them accordingly. But for any decks that didn't make it all the way here, maybe they got modified into a different deck or for some other reason, I'll mention that they were a skeleton in that deck's overview. And of course, every single deck list will be in the video description down below. And if you enjoyed any of the decks, thought they were cool, noticed any cool synergies, please leave a like. It does mean a lot to me. I'm trying to grow this, so any like, any support is really appreciated. So thank you. Forgive my one shill for the video. I promise there's only one, that was it. We'll start with the decks that I have the least played games on, and then we'll move up to the most played decks. I'm going to give a quick summary of each deck, share my thoughts about them along with some of my favorite cards, and I'll give a final rating out of 5. And if it'll be a deck that survives into 2026, or if it'll be one that maybe is on the chopping block soon. This is my 2025 Commander recap, and we'll start with my youngest and most recent deck, which is the Zuko Mardu deck. I call it Mondo Mardu. I don't know what it is with Mardu. I can't come up with a good deck name. But this was originally the Mardu Precon that I upgraded from Turkey or Dragonstorm, and I think that deck is fantastic. I really love Zurgo. He's absolutely incredible. I just got really tired of tokens. There's just something about like having to do, especially when there's like different tokens. It was just not for me. I really loved a lot of the cards in there though. Like I loved one of the Mishras that was in that deck. I'll put it up on screen now so you can see it for yourself. But that's probably a brew that may come to pass in 2026. The upgraded pre-con version, the skeleton, went 2-8 in 2025. I played it a lot. I played 10 games of it, which is more than a lot of other decks on this list. And it has a pretty healthy win rate, but I just got tired of tokens and I wanted to move to something else, which I love, and that is exiling. I love impulse effects, and this deck is completely centered around it. And exiling is a really fun mechanic, but impulse effects are, well, impulsive. There's going to be times whenever I flip over 2 lands and I only have a land drop. There's going to be times when I flip over 2 7-drops and they both get exiled, both get sent to the Shadow Realm forever. But I'm going to try and mitigate that as much as possible, and also just philosophy-wise, accept that that happens. And there are 2 cards that are off the top of my deck that hopefully the next 2 will help me more. That's kind of my rationale with this deck, and I really enjoy it. I'm going to play it tonight, actually, at a Commander night. But I'm not sure if it's really going to survive. I built it because, Avatar came out, everybody was excited about it, and I still am very excited about this deck, but we'll see how long it really sticks around. My standout cards for the deck are Dragonhawk, Fate Tempest, just an absolute exile powerhouse. It gets stronger, it gets more exiling because it gets stronger, like it's just a fantastic card. Reconnaissance, which is just an incredible card for any attacking deck that cares about attacking triggers. If you have an Ishan deck, I kind of view it as like a Dolmen's Gate budget, because you still get the attack triggers, you can still get damage even if no one blocks, and then you can untap them for like a soft vigilance. And lastly, we have Swiftblade Vindicator, which if you saw my reel about this video, first, thanks for watching the reel, and second, it's just like a keyword monster. It's a 2-mana Boros card for, I think it's a 1/1 or a 2/2 with double strike, vigilance, trample, and haste or something like that. I'll put the card up on as well, but it's just absolutely incredible. But the final rating for Zuko is 3.5 out of 5. And the deck finished 1-0 this year. We got a win in its maiden voyage. We'll see how it does tonight. I may get a lot of losses in this last column. Next, we have my Roth IRA, one of the best names, I think, Sephiroth deck. My friend Chance actually got me this Sephiroth for my birthday, and I had to find a place for him. I love this treatment. It's super cool. And originally, he was in the Mardu Precon deck because he got a lot of advantage off of just sacrificing creatures and getting advantage off the tokens dying. But he was so strong, and I wanted to play with him consistently, so I decided that he deserved to be in the command zone. And Aristocrats is just a classic commander strategy, and Sephiroth is the perfect commander. He's like just so perfect for the strategy. Perfectly encapsulates him, has a huge payoff, and feeds himself really well. And like a few other of my recent brews coming from the second half and the last 2 quarters of 2025, there are a lot of popper cards that I just loved, and I wanted to put in a commander deck just to show that their value is still very good. So a lot of the sacrifice fodder cards are Pauper and Pauper staples. And of course, Deadly Dispute is in there. Unban my boy. I know it's not going to happen. But Ichor Wellspring, Deadly Dispute, like you feel so good casting that. It's just so good. It's beautiful. By and large, I don't think this deck is incredibly broken. And it does have a few infinites. It has the Forsaken Miner, which with Phyrexian Altar and like a few other cards as inserts, it can go infinite. But the deck doesn't have a lot of tutors. I don't think it even has any tutors, and it's definitely a deck that I want to have to play. Sacrificing and having all the triggers go on the stack and having to manage all them, and because Sephiroth targets, you have to make sure that like, I mean, if you are distributing them, you have to take that into account. So it is a deck that I enjoy, but I have to be in the right mindset to play it. It's not a deck that I'm just casually sitting down and just playing with friends. But that being said, it's still a mono black deck. It's graveyard and sacrifice focused, and it has Sephiroth leading the helm. So it's a super fun deck. It has always a large impact. I built it such that you almost always flip Sephiroth on the turn after he comes down. You're always getting a lot of value, and you're always a threat, and that's always fun at the table. But moving to the win-loss and the final rating for Sephiroth, finished the year 0-3. If we didn't get a win, I mean, part of it is because he's just so scary. People know to target Sephiroth, and they're right. You should target Sephiroth. If you have any suggestions, please leave them down below for what you like in a Sephiroth deck if you have one. Next, we have two decks that are tied at 4 games each, but we'll start with the one with the worst record. And that is my Dungeons and Dragons deck, also one of my favorite names. It's kind of a stretch, but Jund is my favorite color combination. I absolutely love Jund. I love all 3 colors. I love them in mono. I love each of the combinations between them. And this was a deck that I just really wanted to build as a fling and kind of as a love letter to Jund. I feel like Jund is just such a cornerstone of Magic by and large. And this was another skeleton deck. It came off of a Henzi Toolbox Tori deck, which was terrible. I don't have the record in my notes. I may, but I think it finished like 0-5. And my problem with it is that I would have a huge turn where I blitz out like a really scary card like Junji, and then it dies because it's blitzed, and then everybody targets me because they saw that I did something really big and I have no blockers. So I wanted to have a larger board presence, and I wanted to still have explosive turns, but I didn't want to just get completely shot out after I do something big. The deck runs 48 creatures, which is awesome. I love it. You get Beast Whisper out on the board, and it's basically every card's cantrip. And the highlights among all the creatures for me are Crash the Bloodbraid. Just come on. Look at that card and tell me that's not freaking Jund. Corvold, who, you know, I didn't want to make him commander because, come on, like Corvold is commander, like come on, we're just being a little too basic at that point. Like I want to have like some challenge. And Juri, the Midnight's guy who I mentioned earlier, he had to come back. Those are just some of the Jund Fling classics that I love to play with. And this deck is just like, it's almost the opposite of Sephiroth in some ways because it's so linear and it's so straightforward, and you only have like, I mean, granted, you do have a lot of triggers whenever you get a lot of creatures on the board, but they're generally all about when creature blank this happens. So it's not too terrible to keep track of. Now, the deck did finish 0-4. It has not gotten a win with me as the pilot, but my friend Diego, who's just like this super handsome man that can just pilot any Magic deck to perfection. He's really just like a CDH player. Absolutely fantastic. He got a win with it. And he pulled off the Jumbo Cactuar combo because Jumbo Cactuar is on the deck. So yeah, you can just deal 10,000 damage to someone's face with the Fling, which is pretty awesome. This deck gets a 4 out of 5 for me. It's super fun, super on the board. It's kind of a casual deck because, I mean, it's a 6-cost commander with Zayatora, and if someone just kills Zayatora, then the deck gets kneecapped quite a bit. So I think it's a fun deck. It's on the board, it's fair, and it's just kind of the perfect fit for me. Our next deck is one of my favorite new decks, and it's going to be a forever deck for me. And that is Omo Queen of Asuva, my Change Gates deck. It's one of the coolest designs ever printed on Omo. I just love her flexibility, and she opens up the door to so many different possibilities on tribal matters or land matters or creature matters. Just I think she's a fantastic card. And that's really one of the big problems I have with tribal decks is that you look at like a Hackball deck. It has the same core of like 50 to 60 cards across every deck. And that covers a couple different like card types. Like, of course, you have like the same like 20 or 30 more merfolk that like every deck is running because they're just the best merfolk. And that's something that's, I mean, if you like it, absolutely, like, more power to you. But it's just not what I look for in a commander deck. And I really like to have decks that I feel like are fun, different, interactive, and have a cool sense of synergy without just like being a copy-pasted version of every single deck I've ever seen. Not to sound like I hate on tribal decks. Like, if you want to play a tribal deck, like if you like your Ur-Dragon, you like your Hackball, absolutely more power to you, man. Just you do your thing. But another thing that I love about Omo is because tribals are very common, they are very popular, they get printed pretty regularly. Like there was a lot of tribal support that came out this year, and I'm very excited for Lorwyn, which is going to have more tribal support. So that's something that's great with Omo too, is that I know that with every year that comes out, every set, there's going to be at least a couple pieces to consider for the deck. And that's something that I think is super important for having a forever deck or a long-term deck, is you want cards that you can continue slotting in, so it's not just the same cards every time. And of course, you're going to have cards that you love and you can switch them and swap them out. And I primarily built Omo as a Maze's End deck. So the win con is to get Maze's End out and then just get the win condition of 10 gates on the activated ability. But she can win through a couple different avenues. One of them is outvaluing opponents with just other Lord effects because, I mean, let's be honest, some Lords are just really broken. Like Lord of the Unreal is fantastic in this deck because you can put an everything counter on the Lord, give himself hexproof, and everything else that has everything on it hexproof. It's just fantastic. I also love Baru because he was the first commander deck I ever built, was a mono green Worms deck. So he made it into the cut. Hackball is, of course, in there because he's just broken. Lord of Atlantis is in there. Timberline Protector is in there to give everything indestructible. Just really strong, really strong Lord effects. We also have commander damage as an avenue. Alpha Status is one of the most slept on cards in this deck. It's not even on the EDH rec page. Put this card into your Omo deck if you have one. Like, I don't care what you have to cut. Put this card in. It's absolutely insane. And lastly, you know, just to actually make sure we have the win con that we're going for, we have 18 Gate Matters cards and 11 gates in the land base. And we have a couple of land tutors, like a little bit less than 10, to make sure that we're getting Maze's End or we're getting the other important gate pieces like Baldur's Gate, the Locust, because those can generate a lot of mana. The Tron lands are also in there. Just like a lot of cards that generally are pretty mediocre. Like if you evaluated them, they'd be like a C or like a D. But because Omo just facilitates everything to synergize because they get all subtypes, they get skyrocketed to like incredible value. My standout cards for the deck are Drown in Dreams, Alpha Status, Thrumming Hive Pool from Edge of Eternities, which is just like a super fun card. It not only gives you slivers that get double strike, but it also, because everything is everything, everything gets double strike, which is just like super cool. Sage of the Maze, which, I mean, it has a lot of text, but it's fantastic. And Scion of Draco, who actually won me a game this year because my friend put an Imprison on the Moon on Scion of Draco. So it turned into a land, and then I put an everything counter on it, and that made him a gate. So thank you, Chance. This deck is definitely strong, especially in casual pods. I think it can have a really good rate because it does have tutors, but also if you have land destruction for Maze's End, there's only so much recursion that I have in the deck, so like, it's probably worse the higher up in power you get, and the lower in power I think it gets stronger because games are just generally slower, and because I have tutors, I get the Maze's End out quicker. So take the win rate with a grain of salt. It finished 2-2 this year, and it is an absolutely huge 4.5 out of 5 in my book. The next deck is my strongest deck. It has by far the highest win rate of any of my decks this year, and it continues to be a powerhouse. My mono red Neheb the Eternal deck does not fuck around. The games are fairly innocuous. Until turn 5, I'm really not doing much. I may be playing a Mana Rock, maybe. But once Neheb hits the board, the Doomsday Clock has started. The deck is full of cards like Flame Rift, which turns damage into red mana because of Neheb's ability, and with the same amount of mana generation, the deck utilizes X-cost burn spells and X-cost impulse effects to generate either a ton of damage and burn people out, or just generate a huge amount of card advantage and win the game next turn if no one deals with me. And what's really difficult to deal with Neheb is that you need effects that either mitigate damage entirely or you need some sort of counter magic, which counter magic is, you know, a huge part of the game. And like if someone counterspells my big burn spell, like good on them. Like they held it, they won, like they got it. And at that point, like I'm probably dead enough in the water that I'm not coming back, and you know, that's fine. They got it. Red versus blue is always a classic matchup in Magic. But my favorite cards in the deck are Flame Break, which we mentioned, Crackle with Power, my favorite finisher spell, Warrior's Oath, another absolute favorite, Price of Progress, which has incredible flavor text and art by Richard Kane Ferguson, Heartless Higetsugu, and Descent into Avernus. Descent into Avernus is just like such a party hard card. Like I love it, man. And Neheb finished the year 4-1. He only lost once, which is just like crazy to me for a deck. He fucking rocks, man. 5 out of 5. Berserk is a very difficult media to interact with. I would definitely want to recommend it to everyone. You have to be like in a mood and prepare yourself to read it and to watch it because it is, I mean, it's very dark. I'm not gonna try and dance around it. Terrible things happen. But I think Guts is a really, really fantastic protagonist. And I wanted to stay as true to the series as I could. Obviously, there are confines that you come into whenever you're trying to adapt a show and a manga to a card game, which is, its own set of problems. But I think Graven is a fantastic fit. And I thought it was something that I really wanted to lean into with Life Loss because that's kind of an avenue that I haven't really dabbled in, but it's something I love because life's a resource, baby. The only one that matters is the last one. So this is a deck that really fully utilizes that. And there are a lot of life sinks where you can just pay all of your life all the way down to 1, have Guts be insanely powerful, and then just gain all your life back with lifelink effects or with life drain effects. And it's a blast. Playing with your life total is super fun. It's very risky. I haven't yet gotten punished for it. I haven't gone down to 1 and just gotten like bolted or shocked yet, but if that happens, that's kind of incredible. It'll definitely take the wind out of my sails, but I feel like it would be very funny. And this is a deck that I really enjoy playing. It has a lot of the same kind of issues as the Henzi deck though, where I swing with a huge Guts that is super scary and only one person dies. And then the other 2 players or however many other players are left just are like, okay, we have to deal with him or he's going to completely destroy us, which, fair. But the deck finished with a 1-6 record, and I think in the future I need to meter myself a little bit better to hold on to really powerful, impactful cards until I know that the game is until I know that I have a win within reach and I'm not just like kind of haphazardly knocking out players. I think part of it is because my friend has a Kefka deck, and I just hate that thing, man. Making me discard cards, it ain't right. So I bring Guts out and I kill him first so I don't have to discard cards, and then everyone kills me. So, need to just take a step back, I think, with Guts, which is maybe off flavor, that I'm not just like super mad and angry all the time and trying to slice through everybody. But, there's a time and place for that. This one may not stick around all the way to the end of 2026. I don't really have any ideas of reutilizing a lot of these cards, so I think it'll stick around. But for this year, Guts gets a 4 out of 5, even with a bad record. So I watched one too many Salubrious Snail videos, and I decided it was time to build a bottom-up commander deck rather than a top-down commander deck. And the TLDR is top-down is essentially you see a cool commander from a new set, and you're like, okay, I'm going to build everything around him. That's like what I did with the Zuko deck. I saw Zuko, and I was like, let's build a strategy formatted around him at the top. A bottom-down or bottom-up deck design is you have an archetype in mind. So like for me, it was Landfall. I really wanted to play with Landfall, and then I thought, how could I make that work with a commander that really benefits that? And my solution was Hugs. Hugs is fantastic because you can always cast him on the top of your curve because he's X-costed. He benefits you for playing more lands, and he gives you a whole new set of cards to play from exile. So the deck does have a lot of landfall synergies, but it has a ton of exile effects as well. Like Nalfeshnia is in there, Keeper of Secrets is in there, just some absolute powerhouses whenever you can start copying like Cultivator Colossuses out of exile. Like it's absolutely insane. I've really enjoyed this deck. It's been a blast to torment my friends with like cards like Mossborn Hydras. I'm really sorry, Keaton. I promise. I can't promise it won't happen again. I'm just gonna move on. However, I'm not really sure if the deck will stick around. The Burn Wincon with Neheb is Crackle with Power, and I have a Crackle with Power in here, and I have a Crackle with Power proxy in my Neheb deck, so that may get taken out at some point. And I really wanted to build a Graveyard Landfall deck. I had the Soul Type Precon from Tarkir as well, and I took that apart like instantly because I just thought Taval was too broken. But I feel like I'm kind of getting called back to a Graveyard Landfall strategy, so some of the cards in here may get taken out, like some of the fetch lands. And I've really wanted to do Gitrog Monster, so this deck may not be long for this world, but it's been one that I've really, really enjoyed, and I think it was a really fun experiment to make a really strong strategy even stronger. Like Landfall is probably the strongest strategy or archetype in Casual Commander. Once you get higher up and people are running land destruction, or you're just in pause where people are running land destruction, like it's still strong because inherently in your deck building, if you've run enough lands like you should, like this deck has I think over 40 lands, you're going to rebuild faster because you just have more lands to play. But I'm getting besides myself. My favorite cards in the deck are Tanuk, the one from Edge of Eternities where you play a land, draw a card, deal damage. Really, really, really good. Famous Worldsire, another Edge of Eternities card. I mean, Edge of Eternities was just a great set, man. I love that set. One of my favorites of this year. Super underrated. Cultivator Colossus, who we talked about earlier. I mean, you just go through your whole deck, maybe. I don't know. and the goddamn man Bristly Bill. For now, it'll stay until I get a really strong itch to build the Gitrog Monster or a Sultai Jund Landfall deck. But Hugs finished the year with a 3-4 record, which is very strong, and I'm going to give him a 4 out of 5 rating. Old Stickfingies. Where do I even begin? To me, you aren't just a card. You're an embodiment of an entire archetype. A king of the graveyard. An all-time great, right up there with LeBron. Old Stickfingers is another forever deck that I love to play. And while he's not insanely powerful because he was one of the first decks that I really built and one that I tried to utilize synergy in, I know it's a lot coming from me. I know, just stay with me here. It did finish the deck 4-4, and 3 of those wins came from Jared, Golgari Lichlord, and the Lord of Extinction combo. It's not really a combo, but it kind of is. I mean, Jared is just an insane win con in graveyard decks, and this is something that I feel like is a great conundrum that I have in this deck. And I don't know if other people struggle with this in their graveyard decks, but I like being able to close games. I like having closing power, but I feel like it can be boring if it's just the same card over and over. But that's something I consider, and I think I've finally gone over it, that I'm just fine with Jared and Lord of Extinction winning. I don't think there's necessarily anything bad with having a focus towards those, and it makes it easier for people who are playing against it. Like, if you see that Jared or Lord of Extinction goes in my graveyard, you are praying for a Bajuka Bog or some sort of graveyard hate in your deck or off the top of your library. And I think that can be a fun time bomb, but I want to evaluate and talk with my friends more about if that's something that they just don't like seeing, because I want to be cognizant of the people that I'm playing with and their feelings and their attitudes toward the game, but I want to rebuild the deck. There's definitely like a CDH direction you could go where you have like Walking Ballista and like a couple other cards that do like an infinite line by having less creatures, Old Stickfingers. But I still like having a large amount of creatures because it adds an extra layer of variance, which I think it really needs in order to have the Jared and Lord of Extinction in the deck. My favorite cards in the deck are Angel of Suffering, Deathbloom Ritualist, which can just make you so much mana, Jared, as we talked about, and Shigeki. Shigeki, he's just the perfect like glue card in a graveyard deck. He does everything. He's recursion, he's mill, he's lands, he's just... Shigeki is 10 out of 10 card. And I also just want to take a second. I'm going to show off these sleeves, these custom sleeves that I got. Shout out to Makoto Yukimura, the artist of Vinland Saga, which, hopefully there will be a Vinland Saga deck next year. I'm really hoping I can get it done. But with the 4-4 finish, Old Stickfingies finishes very strong, and he'll continue to be one of my forever decks. And he gets a good old 5 out of 5. Okay, we are down to our last 2 decks. My top 2 decks of 2025. My penultimate deck is Scry Me a River. The first iteration of this deck was made just 15 days after Old Stickfingies. I was really cooking back in December of 2023. But this deck has gone through 3 different iterations, so maybe I wasn't cooking very much. The first iteration was an Elf Tribal deck, and I kind of talked about my development against tribal decks earlier with the Omo. And the second iteration was a Simic Enchantment deck led by Eutropia, which was super cool. I really want to try that in the Pauper commander space. But in the most recent iteration, I've taken the deck in a slightly different direction. It is dramatically increasing in power, however. The deck is now full of evasive creatures, so the Slitherblade, Triton Shorestalker, Mistcloaked Herald, all those great cards. They are consistent, low to the ground, evasive bodies that get stronger as we dig through our deck with Elrond, by scrying cards, putting away what we don't need, getting what we need, and hopefully looking for some very big finishers. And there are just some really good counter and scry support cards that came out this year. Ouroboros is just an insane card. I actually got an artist proof of it, which was super cool. And it combos with Sage of the Hours. Like, you get those 2 cards and you just get infinite turns. And because you have probably, as long as no one killed it or no one kills it whenever you announce this, as long as you have an evasive creature, you'll just kill people before you draw your entire deck. Which is really important to have a way out with infinite turns, because if you don't, you'll mill your library before everybody else. So you got to be able to do something with infinite turns, but that's not a problem in this deck. Matoya from Final Fantasy is an incredible card draw engine, and Avatar had a lot of great cards as well. I put the Planetarium in this deck. We'll see how long it stays there, but it's just a super fun scry payoff card, and I was like, if this card is going to go in any deck, the Planetarium of Wan Shi Tong has to go in the Scry Me a River deck. This deck has always been with me, and I think it always will be. It may just go through different iterations. Scrying is not a huge mechanic for me, but 1/1 counters are. I think I will always have a 1/1 counter deck, and it's pretty simple. You get big creatures that get taller with a die, and then you swing them sideways, and you try and win. If you don't win, whatever. My favorite cards in the deck are the Infinite Comboing Ouroboros along with Sage of Hours, and I also love the Legend of Karuk. It has like a preordain effect stapled onto the Saga, and then once it flips over, you make more evasive creatures, and you can take an extra turn. So it seems pretty good. Although the iterations of the older deck went 2 and 8, in its new form, it's undefeated. It's 2 and 0. And overall, the deck gets a 5 out of 5 for me. And I think this iteration will stick around for longer than the other ones. We've made it to my most played favorite commander deck of 2025 and my favorite commander deck ever that I've built. One of my earliest builds. If you've played with me, you know all about this deck. It is my Yojimbo Ryu Storm's Edge commander deck. We talked a little bit about top-down design and bottom-up design and the different philosophies, but this deck is a flavor deck similar to Guts. I built this deck based on my favorite film, Akira Kurosawa's film Yojimbo, released in 1961. It is a film that is a huge boon for any Western fans and a huge influence on American Westerns. The Good, Bad, and the Ugly series, Fistful of Dollars, just completely, I mean, a little bit too far, if you know the stories, a little bit too far inspired by Akira Kurosawa's films. But Yojimbo will always be a classic to me. It's one of my favorite films. I wrote a whole paper about it in college. It's just fantastic. And this deck was my attempt at encapsulating the feel of Sanjuro in a Magic setting. It was challenging though to try and find 99 cards that could fit into this mold. And I'm not gonna lie, not all of them fit in. Like I have SRAM in here, but SRAM doesn't really fit with this. So there are like some cards that don't fit into the theme, but you know, it's not perfect. I cared more about the deck like having any sort of synergy and functioning rather than every card fitting like a feudal Japan setting. But you know, Kamigawa did a lot of work. Now, Ryu Storm's Edge is not a popular commander. He's not even in the like top 500. I think he's like last I checked like mid 800s. But all of my friends, anyone who's played with this deck would say he is dangerous. Like you need to look out for him. And that is because you get 2 combats every turn with him. And combat spells are something that I think most Voltron and aggro players are really fond of. And having built-in 2 combats with this card is fantastic, because the deck is built around giving him a lot of really good equipment and getting a lot of really powerful attack triggers. And some of them are definitely stronger than others. I'm still working on getting the feast or getting the sword cycle into the deck. I have Sword of Feast and Famine. It is very strong, and you do not want to be the person that Sanjuro is just staring down the entire game. Some of my favorite equipment in the deck are the Great Sword of Tyr, which is not super flashy and blingy, but it just puts in so much work. It gives counters onto Sanjuro and it taps down blockers. Mjolnir, which kind of does the same thing with tapping down and then dealing damage, and Sword of Feast and Famine to just make everybody hate you. The deck is always a blast to play. It's by far my highest played deck of the year with 18 total games and with a record of 4 wins and 14 losses. This is a deck that I will always love, and I'm always looking to upgrade it with appropriate upgrades whenever new sets come out and new equipment comes out that's super cool. But at the end of the day, I don't want this deck to just be like a super disgusting powerful deck. Like I want it to still have some of the fun of the film, where it's not like I'm just winning on like turn 5 or whatever. Like it takes a little bit to ramp up. It's a combat damage deck. If I'm playing against 5 players, like this deck's never going to win. Now with that, all that being said, all my rambling done, I mean, there's not much more else to say. This deck is a 5 out of 5 for me, and it will never get taken apart. This deck will be with me as long as I'm playing this game. This year has been a great personal year for me, Magic-wise. More of my friends have gotten into the game. I've gotten to experiment with new formats like Pauper, which has really opened my eyes and just made me look at the game in a whole new way, which is just such an incredible feeling. And I hope that you have experiences like that and you have a great 2026. I really appreciate you for watching this video. Of course, like I said, all deck lists will be in the description. Feel free to look at them, give any feedback, or share any stories you like with similar decks, or just share anything you like down in the comments. If you want a deeper dive into any of the decks, I'd be happy to oblige and make a video about that. Yeah, that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know this will be a longer one, but thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful and prosperous 2026. Take care, y'all.